Hour, I'd like to convene the city council meeting, committee of the whole, November 9th, and ask for a roll call.
Jacobson. Fanouken.
Here.
Markwart.
Here.
Snow.
Here.
Noriko.
Here.
Baker.
Here.
Ray.
Here,
6 present.
and we do have a quorum. I will move to the first consideration, a request for proposal for coordinated traffic signal upgrade. City manager?
Thank you very much. City Engineer John Laskowski is going to give a presentation on this.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Today, I'm presenting I'm asking for permission to distribute an RFP for Coordinated Traffic Signal Upgrade Program. This is the second step in the qualifications-based selection process. So the initial step was distributing the request for qualifications, and we did that in February, distributing that RFQ to 17 different engineering firms. And I think it was 17 or 18 different projects as well on that list at that time. We had 10 responses from qualified engineering consultants that provided us with responses. And of those 10, we've selected the 3 most qualified right now. So we're essentially asking for permission then to distribute this RFP to those 3 most qualified consulting engineers. And once we distribute it, it will be returned, and then the City Council will have a chance again to review it and determine if the amounts, the negotiated amount is okay. So what the project is essentially is it began in 2009. It was conceived then with the understanding that the technology that the city had on both all the traffic signals, the interconnects, as well as the hardware within the city that the city has to monitor the traffic signals was getting old. So in 2011, the city engineer at the time presented this project to DSATS as a potential project for federal funding. DSATS approved this project, and the funding sources are going to be coming from both STU money, which is Surface Transportation Urban money, at 80% of the cost, and 20% will be funded by the local match or the city. The first $120,000 is for the design engineering. That's going to be coming directly from the city and what was budgeted for this year. Again, I'm not asking to expend that money at this time. When we speak and interview the consulting engineers for this project, we'll bring that proposal back and allow City Council to have the opportunity to either approve it or not approve it or provide another recommendation. So what this project does essentially is it reviews all the traffic signals in town, and it upgrades them from the old technology to digital controllers. And these controllers are going to be able to communicate better with the proposed technology. It'll provide the city the opportunity to, city staff the opportunity to review the timing of the signals and then re-optimize them to provide a smoother traffic flow on the major corridors. The project also includes, in some cases, we're going to be asking the consulting engineer to look at the wire in the ground and the wire that's available, both aerial in the ground and the fiber optics. So right now, there's 3 different ways the traffic signals are connected. The first way is through conduit in the ground via copper wire. There's also copper wire run on aerial poles, and then there's fiber optics that connect some of them, and that's the more new technology. So as part of this, we'd be asking the consulting engineer to look at locations throughout the city where it may be beneficial to change from copper to fiber optics. We're not anticipating that we'll have sufficient funding to change all the copper wire to fiber optics, but where most practicable, we'd be asking for recommendations. So essentially at this time then, based on kind of the proposal that I've put together in the background, we're just asking the City Council's approval to distribute this RFP to the 3 most qualified engineering firms, and then the next step of the process will be to bring back the proposal of the candidate that we feel is most qualified, along with the cost that we've negotiated with that consultant. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. Yes?
Will this study also take a look at whether additional traffic signals are needed?
It will not.
Okay.
Alderman Snow.
I assume rather than just looking to see whether we should upgrade our signals, they're actually doing an analysis of what would need to be done. So it's just not an opinion, it's saying if you do this, this is what you need to do. This is the equipment you buy, this is how you would implement it.
Essentially, yeah, it's a recommendation of what we
Right,
need to
but
do.
it gets into specific recommendations.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so, I mean, that's the cost. And then would part of this also allow the city to handle special events if we needed to change the traffic signals for a parade or some home, corn fest or something? Would that kind of allow for special tweaking of the system during those periods of time?
The technology we're anticipating, we should be able to have a better ability to monitor the traffic signals. So there'd be a terminal down at Public Works where we can see exactly what's going on with the signals, and we would be able to make those adjustments to tweak the timing on them to a limited amount. There are certain corridors we would have more flexibility to do that than others, but we would have that ability to adjust them and then adjust them back.
Okay, thank you.
We do have another question.
Alderman.
Are there any intersections that are removed from this study because the primary responsibility for maintaining the road is other than the city?
Even the state routes, the city retains responsibility for the signals on them.
Okay.
Other questions of Engineer Laskowski? My understanding, John, is that the design engineering that you're asking for consensus on this evening will result in a specific RFP response coming back that we can see the hard dollars that a firm is proposing to put into the study.
That's correct.
The study will then result in a focus on this $1.2 million, what is projected at this point is $1.2 million project.
Correct. So,
Okay.
right, exactly. That's correct.
Okay. So what city staff is asking for this evening is a consensus from council to move forward on the RFP process. And I would ask at this point, does anyone object to staff moving forward on that process? Hearing none, I'll give staff the direction from council to move forward with the RFP, and we'll look forward to that response. John, timeframe on the response, what would you expect?
We're going to be touring the city with the engineering firms we've selected on the 13th and 14th of this week. So we're hoping that, I think we'd try to get the response back by either December 4th or maybe the first meeting in January. Or I'm sorry, the first meeting in December or the first meeting in January.
Okay.
Would be when we're looking to bring it back.
Very good. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Moving to the next item then, we have a feasibility study of the Egyptian Theater. And I'll turn to City Manager Gora.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to ask our Economic Development Coordinator, Jennifer Diedrich, to give an overview presentation on this item. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Staff is requesting permission to issue an RFP for a feasibility study of the Egyptian Theater. As you know, the city has provided financial assistance to the preservation of the Egyptian Theater, or PET, as they're better known, for over 25 years, recognizing the inherent value of the facility in the downtown. The theater is listed on the National Registry of Historic Places and brings national prominence to DeKalb. Both the Downtown Revitalization Plan of 2007 and the City Center Plan of 2013 reference the value of the Egyptian Theater to the overall economic vitality of the downtown. Increasing the operating potential of the theater was identified as a transformational project and included in the FY16 budget as a result of the TIF phase-out discussions. While the city has provided financial operations support periodically to the Egyptian Theater over the years. This inconsistent approach really has never addressed the specific issue of the theater's stability of the theater's operation model. And it's evident that the current operations model of the theater is not practical or sustainable. The Egyptian Theater's FY16 TIF funding agreement with the city included the completion of this feasibility study for the theater. The agreement allocates $50,000 towards this expense and requires that the feasibility study be done prior to updating and moving forward with the design and engineering documents for the air conditioning project. The purpose of the feasibility study is to identify a sustainable operating model that achieves the mission, cultural, programming, and financial goals of the organization. Staff has worked with the Egyptian Theater Board of Directors and theater staff to prepare the request for proposals, which was included in your backup. The RFP focuses on the following main areas: market and programming review, operating potential, operating resources, financial and cultural impact, ownership and management, and then final conclusions and recommendations. Issuance of the RFP will be a joint effort between the city and PET, with the city supervising the completion of the study. Staff anticipates returning with a proposal recommendation for council to approve in January 2016, if you authorize us to move forward this evening, and a draft report in May 2016 with a final report due June of 2016. Alex Nerad, the Executive Director of the Egyptian Theater, is here tonight to address any questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have as well.
Okay. Questions at this point of Jennifer and Council, Alderman
so-
Snow?
This study is really to look at the total organization of the Egyptian Theater, how it's organized, how it's managed, what its relationship is with the city, how to maybe better manage its, so it's not just focusing on one thing,
Correct.
it's a whole,
Total package, comprehensive
review.
review. Yes.
as to what would be the best operating and
Yes.
management form that should be in.
Yes, sir.
And it sounds like there will be a programmatic review as well,
Yes.
looking at
Yes.
potential and
Yes.
market demand.
Yep, if we look at, let me get in here. So they're going to, what's being requested in the RFP is to have the consultant identify and evaluate all comparable theaters of the same size as the Egyptian in our region, and do an analysis of the marketplace, a survey of potential users, and programming facility operating use. So they're going to be able to identify, to a degree of accuracy, what potential we have here for additional users at the theater.
So it sounds like this will be useful for the Egyptian Theater regardless of whether we put any more money into it or not. It would be a document or a blueprint of what really should be done with the Egyptian Theater regardless of what funding goes into it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Other discussion or questions? Alderman Rake.
And as I recall, we had discussed this when, during budget hearings, we were, there was expressed a concern regarding money that had gone, been provided to the Egyptian, and, what return was coming from those dollars. And so I think this is a good opportunity to really do a comprehensive review and address ownership and the never-ending problem of the air conditioning and so forth. So-
Agreed.
Well, I think another benefit that I anticipate coming forward is a sustainable operating model for the Egyptian Theater, where we've seen different boards oversee the Egyptian. I think there was a strategic plan initiative that the Egyptian board had conducted. I look forward to this study really focusing on that operating model, the structure, as well as the programmatic and the physical capital requirements for the theater to be viable. Other questions of Jennifer? Okay. This evening, what staff is asking of council is consensus for them to move forward on an RFP process toward those consultants that could conduct this feasibility study.
Correct.
Does anyone have objection to staff moving forward in that direction? And we have the timeline in front of us that the intent is to come back in a January?
Yes, the last
Timeframe.
meeting in January with a recommendation.
And then a draft report is anticipated in May with a final report in June.
Correct. The RFP requires the consultant to come and give the final report in person at the second meeting in June in 2016.
Okay? Very good. Thank
Okay,
you, Jennifer,
thank you.
then. I think we have consensus from council. Public participation. Is there anyone in the public wishing to speak? Mrs. Chronopoulos.
This is in regards to what you just passed. Luckily, you'll have some more time to ponder the RFPs for the Egyptian Theater. I'm a huge fan of the Egyptian Theater. I've worked many, many times over the years, popping popcorn and cleaning seats and everything else as a volunteer. And the vast majority of people that I come in contact with see that facility as an asset. I know Alex and I have been working on a couple of projects, which we'll let you in on a little bit later as they progress, in order to help the Egyptian Theater on a volunteer basis. There's absolutely no question in my mind, and in the minds of many people, that that is an asset. Why in the world we'll need to spend up to $50,000 to tell us more or less what we already know is kind of ridiculous. It seems that that money could go towards the air conditioning fund. That would be $50,000 less that they would have to raise in order to put in that much needed system in the facility to maintain the facility. So maybe you'll have to wait until you see the RFPs and all that come into play, but really, council, study after study after study, when we already know that it's an asset to the community. That's all it's going to tell you, what we already know. Waste of money. Now is not the time to be doing that.
Thank you, Bessie. Anyone else in the gallery wishing to speak to council? Yes. Mrs. Prosel?
Totally impromptu. Speaking as a person who's lived in DeKalb for a very long time, 40-ish years, one who has taken part with the university, who has had businesses, I'd have to say, being on the board of the Egyptian Theater, I realize just how important the existence of the Egyptian is to us as a town. I am also the owner of Tapa La Luna. Tapa La Luna, being downtown, restaurant, sees an incredible change whenever there's something happening. This is also true of Stagecoach, but even more so when the Egyptian Theater has something happening, all of downtown DeKalb lights up. It is a historic building. It's been in existence, well, 1929 it was built. It's a real draw. We're working very hard at bringing in more and bigger shows. When big shows come in, so does money. It really does. I think it's a fabulous asset, and I'm very happy that it was brought back to what it had been. I'm excited that it might continue, and there are a few things that we would change about it that would make it usable throughout the year, but I just think it's a wonderful investment. That's all.
Thank you, Nancy. Anyone else wishing to speak to council at this point? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn committee of the whole. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Alderman Markwart. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Alderman Noriko. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. We will reconvene the regular meeting of City Council at the 6 p.m. hour.